Ahead on American Sunrise Early Edition, while the focus remains on the Doge cost-cutting crusade, the House narrowly passes the Trump budget bill with trillions of dollars worth of tax cuts. Now the battle moves to the Senate. ICE agents are in the crosshairs in one part of Los Angeles as their faces and personal info is plastered all over posters in a crucial part of the city. That's putting their lives and the lives of their families in danger. But at the other end of the spectrum, the pipeline of illegal aliens is slowing down considerably. Southern border alien encounters are down to a 15-year low. Funeral services held today for those two little Israeli boys murdered by Hamas, Zvi and Kavir Bibas, and their mother Shiri, laid to rest in a ceremony that touched all the world. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott smells a rat in the state's lottery system that could be a sign of a nationwide rigging of all the big lotto games. You didn't think you ever really had a chance to win, did you? American Sunrise Early Edition starts now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition, the show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds, that's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jake Novak. Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot of news to cover, so let's get right to it. The breaking news overnight is that the House passed very narrowly, 217 to 215. Sounds like what the NBA scores are going to be like these days when they don't play any defense. We're getting there anyway. But actually, that was the vote count to pass that Republican budget bill that include all those tax cuts and also some spending cuts as well. And this happens in the wake of still most of the attention that we're seeing on Doge, the Doge cost-cutting programs, things like that. My guest this morning is Tom Slocum. He is an oil and gas consultant, also a former Republican candidate for office in Texas. And Tom, first I want to ask you just a little bit about how, whether this is the kind of thing that the Trump team needs to prove that it's still moving ahead with business as usual in Washington. I know a lot of people don't like parts of the bill, but it isn't just about tearing things down. I wonder if you like the fact that they're doing so many things at once.
You know, I'm really happy to see some action straight out of the gate with the Trump administration on Doge in a really big way. It's shocking to a lot of leftists and Democrats that we could actually pull this off in such a short period of time with what I consider real accountants. It's make accounting great again is a real thing right now. And I'm happy to see it because we need it more than ever. Who can trust these big-time accounting firms that have their own lobbyists? Remember the Arthur Andersons of the world? Are these people that you can really trust? For me, the answer is no. I trust, the 22-year-old kids in there with the crazy screen names online that everybody's making fun of. I actually trust them right now more than I trust our own officials to do this because, as we know, the Pentagon's never passed an audit. And the spending is out of control. No American is signed up for the kind of spending which they've been carrying out for the past, 50, 60 years, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of the viewers here and the American people here. Again, not only is what Doge is doing very popular, to show you that poll again, 80% of the people basically in favor of what Doge is doing. But the other aspect here that people don't know about necessarily is that Doge and what's going on is the number one kind of issue as far as what the voters are thinking about and talking about. My friend Scott Rasmussen doing that poll the other day, much more interest in that than what's going on in the Middle East, much more interest in that than what's going on with Ukraine and things like that. So I don't want to get ahead of you, but I got to say something here, folks. This is a story that you're going to get excited about, and you're going to hear about it here first, at least on a national level. And that is this scandal that is growing right now in the state of Texas. Here's what's going on. You're in the middle of it, Tom, so I want to ask you about it. It is a national story, I believe, because these lotteries are a national issue. After some fishy lottery wins in the Lone Star State, Texas is now barring so-called courier services. Those are those online websites that you can go to buy lotto tickets, and they're barring them in the state. Here's why. Those services make it possible for big buyers, could be hedge funds, could be foreign governments, to buy millions of tickets in just about a couple of days with every number combination covered. And that is how these things start. Now, Tom, your Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, personally went to the store where one of the winning tickets was sold, and here's what he found. Check this out.
So I finally did get in the back of the house. They wouldn't let us take any photographs or video or ask anyone any questions, but there were terminal after terminal after terminal after terminal, many, many more terminals than you would ever see in the normal place that you buy lottery tickets. So there's a lot of questions and there are a lot of answers that we need because the bottom line is, if people are going to have confidence in the lottery, we have to be sure that no one has an advantage. And again, we're not suggesting anything illegal, but this is not the way the lottery was designed to operate.
All right, Tom, tell us how this is a big story in Texas right now and your prediction on whether this becomes a national story. I know I've already weighed in on it.
Yeah, this is an incredible story, and the lieutenant governor is doing the right thing here by exposing this massive sea of corruption. What I believe has happened, this is my opinion, is that you have some lobbyists in there from these companies, these courier businesses, and I believe that they sought permission from statewide elected officials in Texas to, quote, have a waiver or break the law, essentially, and sell these tickets overseas and sell them to people out of state and just make illegal sales all around together. And now, that it's been exposed and it's being shut down, I really want to see the people that, quote, approve this to begin with, because supposedly that's what happened here. That's the secret, the big secret on the inside. But Dan Patrick is taking advantage of a situation to show that he's willing to stand up for what's right. He has his own, agenda. He's got his own pet projects that he wants done. Everybody does when you're a statewide elected official. But this is something that you cannot ignore, because it appears that these tickets, maybe in some cases, were even being sold to China. And so once again, the CCP in Haro, it's China. It's like the meme online. Every single time you turn around, it's China. Well, guess what? Here again, I believe we have China, and not only that, but we have corrupt officials. Because I've been told that one of these people that is involved in owning one of these courier services was getting multiple winning tickets. So how is that even possible? Because the statistical odds of that are really outrageous, and you can't ignore that. And so that's the reason why this is becoming a big situation. It's almost like the Monopoly McDonald's scandal, if you remember that. Everybody was wondering what was going on. Well, it was rigged. Well, guess what? In this case, it's rigged, and there's money that's flowing. And as we know with lobbyists and politicians, as soon as they have a lobby and as soon as they have a business, next thing you know, all of a sudden politicians, they're getting these checks. They tend to look the other way. Colony Ridge, $1 million, Greg Abbott, I wouldn't put past any of these people to be corrupt as hell, because, now Greg Abbott's really happy about Colony Ridge, but a year ago, there wasn't a whole lot he was doing. Well, guess what? How long has this been going at the Lottery Commission here in Texas? What do they want to do? They want to replace it with a gambling commission and backdoor gambling in Texas? No, we don't. This is extremely corrupt. This is a whole nother reason why we don't need gambling in Texas. This is the biggest reason we should never get gambling in Texas, is because you can't trust these people to even hold a regular lottery where you're just drawing balls out of the cage and saying, here's who's won. No, that's too complicated for these people. They need to pull the plug on the entire thing. This is extremely corrupt. I guarantee you there's money going places it shouldn't.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and also, there's no way it's just Texas. I'm telling you that right now. What has always stopped, if you have it, I just want to explain really quickly before we wrap it up about this particular topic, how this works. If let's say there's $100 million jackpot, and you have $25 million lying around. Who has that kind of money? A hedge fund or a foreign country's sovereign wealth fund. And they can buy 25 million tickets with all the number combinations. Now, why couldn't they do this before? Because the technology wasn't there. These internet companies are buying up these little stores like you saw in the video, Tons of terminals in the back of the store where they're printing out tickets 24/7, and they can get that many tickets printed with all the different number combinations. And so it's guaranteed money. They're going to get a winner. That's what's going on, and it is clearly going on in other states as well. Folks, you don't have a chance to win these lotteries. I know you never really thought you had a good chance, but you have no chance, and this needs to end. All right, Tom, I'm going to ask you about something else, about a story that's coming from outside of Texas, but now affects you in Texas, a little bit different than this lottery story, and that is something I think you can educate us about too. As you probably know, New York Governor Kathy Hochul is supposed to be in the process of nixing natural gas hookups and going for all electric gas heating all over the state. But here's the thing. Because prices have been going up anyway, the fact that she would cut off natural gas would make them go really high, and so now she's slow walking it. Tom, can you explain to Governor Kathy Hochul the law of supply and demand from someone who knows the oil and gas business, please?
I mean, this is outrageous what's going on in New York. They're treating their citizens like, just lower than earth scum, basically. They don't think anything of you when they're limiting your options, and they want to make it as difficult as possible to live in your state. Does this woman want people to actually live there, move there, want to come to New York? If so, she needs to give people options. By just charging people, out the wazoo, what are you actually doing to contribute to the betterment of your state? I have a lot of criticisms of Greg Abbott, but I think he does want lower utility costs. And until you get on board with, hey, we need lower utility costs, we need to make it easier for every American to live in this world with massive inflation, you've got serious problems. So the green policies, really, a lot of this stuff needs to be killed off by Donald Trump. I would like to see executive orders. I would like to see one to where we could actually get loans again in the oil industry and make loans great again. Because if there's no loan baby loan, there's not going to be any drill baby drill. And we need to have reserve-based lending, RBL, made great again right now in the oil industry here in Houston, Texas. That's got to happen. I want to see some action from the president. I really do. I want to see him tell Kathy Hochul, hey, you're a crazy person. You're going to ruin your state. You're going to bankrupt your state. And we're not going to be here to bail you out when it's all over with. So don't come looking for a bailout when you make bad decisions and you're way behind the ball because you decided you wanted to take natural gas offline in the entire state of New York. I mean, this is outrageous policy. No one with a brain would ever do this. This is clearly just virtue signaling for the Democrat Party. And look, she could be a leader right now. There's no leadership in the Democrat Party. She could take the mantle right now from everyone and say, hey, you know what? We're going to make New York great again. We're going to work with ICE. We're going to work with the administration. She's going to the opposite direction. She's missing out on a great opportunity right now as a Democrat in her own party.
That's right. Big poll boost that she could get. And, again, I hope everyone notices that the two big stories we covered with Tom are wars on the poor. The lottery is a war on the poor. It's a tax on the poor. And going for these green policies in states that have cold winters is also a war on the poor. That's who faces the biggest cost. Tom Slocum from Houston, Texas, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Jake.
My pleasure. All right, coming up, a new report says angry CIA agents are becoming more likely to revolt against President Trump by selling America's secrets to foreign countries. Say what? You'll hear what one congresswoman has to say about that. And I'll have more details on the disturbing trend of illegal immigration supporters, because that's who they are, putting ICE agents and their families in danger. American Sunrise Early Edition is coming right back. looking live at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You might remember last week I asked a question I didn't know the answer to. What is the Mason-Dixon line for palm trees? What's the, maybe someone in the Getter chat can tell me, what's the northernmost point in America, United States, where palm trees can grow? I assume it's somewhere in South Carolina. And it might be Myrtle Beach for all I know, but I'd love to hear the answer to that question. All right, welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak, and again, very special welcome to those of you following on Getter and Rumble. This is a positively frightening story I got to tell you about out of the Los Angeles area. One part of the city, known for housing a large number of illegal aliens, is now also home to dozens of posters with pictures of ICE officers, their names, and other personal information. What could go wrong? Now, needless to say, this puts those ICE agents and their families in danger. But this is precisely what you can expect from these kinds of sanctuary cities where hardened criminals not only enjoy high levels of immunity, but they feel free to threaten and even attack police and other law enforcement agents. Who's paying for these pictures to go up? And by the way, and this is something I want everyone to remember, the same people crying right now over the federal workers being required to send emails to DOJ or who might get laid off because that is somehow a terrible threat to them, have no problem. They're cheering some of this. They have no problem with putting ICE agents, who are also federal workers, by the way, have no problem putting their faces and their names and their addresses up on posters in areas filled with criminals. This is selective outrage. I spoke to a former LA sheriff about this. He's very, very worried about it. We should all be worried about it. You don't like this policy, that's fine. But don't come to me and say you're upset about someone having to send an email to DOJ when you're also cheering, putting ICE agents' lives and their families in danger. It's just an incredible hypocrisy. I know politics is a lot of hypocrisy, but this one takes the cake. All right, now here's another real outrage. A CNN report, I don't know how they got this report, but let's take their word for it. A CNN report says CIA agents who are angry at President Trump are now more likely to sell state secrets, government secrets, to foreign countries, including our enemies, because that's the way they want to protest. Well, here's what Congressman Anna Paulina Luna told Charlie Kirk about that.
Had CNN reporting that there are actual agents at the CIA that would even consider selling our classified information because they don't like President Trump, they don't like Republicans in the White House, to our foreign adversaries. I genuinely believe that is treason, that they will be held accountable. So my message to them is, if you do that, you will have the full might and force of the law against you, and you will be held accountable, whether that's going to prison or, I would argue, even harsher penalties, Charlie. But also to remember, less than a week ago, or about a week ago, I was announced as taking over the task force to be the action arm for President Trump and aid in the declassification efforts of the JFK, Martin Luther King, and RFK files, and then also pushing for declassification on other things covering, Epstein to 9/11 to COVID-19, et cetera. What I will tell you, Charlie, is after that task force was announced, it seemed like there was a mass effort to really push back against the task force, even though we don't hold declassification authority, to try to undermine our efforts in executing President Trump's agenda. And then we find out 24 hours after the task force is announced that the FBI finds thousands of pages of documents related to that declassification executive order. And then we find out last night that an FBI whistleblower, Garrett O'Boyle, comes forward and says that he has knowledge that there are people at the FBI who, prior to Kash Patel's nomination and confirmation, that they were deleting and destroying evidence related to the documents that we were requesting. So there's absolutely an intelligence war happening. And what I can tell you, Charlie, is had President Trump not gotten elected, I do believe that we would have lost this country.
Yeah, you can guess what the rest of that sentence was. We'd be in much bigger trouble. The Charlie Kirk Show airs here on Real America's Voice every Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Check it out. All right, coming up, the competition in the weight loss injectable drug industry is getting so heated that street pushers might even be blushing at what one company is doing in hopes of getting you hooked. I have the details. And how do you feel about self-driving cars? And how do you feel about them now compared to a few years ago? Don't answer, however, before you consider one very important thing I'm going to bring up about them when American Sunrise Early Edition and our Moving America segment rolls to you just ahead. you're looking live at Wrigley Field on the north side of Chicago, Illinois. I have a couple of words for everyone here. Neighborhood ballparks. That is the answer. It makes it such a difference to go to a baseball game or a football game. There's hardly any NFL stadiums in any neighborhoods. The Buffalo Bills Stadium is. I can't think of any other. They're all off of interstates. They have no feel. That neighborhood in Chicago is so dedicated to the Cubs. Restaurants, bars, parks. It's just wonderful. That's the way you do it. Make all the use you can of your downtowns and things like that. All right, let's take a look at where the markets are going to begin today. We had a mixed day yesterday. The Dow went up. The NASDAQ went way down. I just want to give everybody a little bit of a heads up here. Let's take a look at also crude oil down to $68 a barrel level. That's cool. I think we're going to start to see a national average for gasoline at under $3. A lot of you watching already have $2 gas, but a lot of people don't. I think we're going to get there in the next couple of days, potentially. We're at $3.14 at the national average. Now let's take a look at Bitcoin, because it's still struggling right now. We're at the $88,000 mark. It is really treading water right now at that mark, but it went down from 96 just a couple of days ago. We'll see where this goes. A lot of you watching probably thinking this is a buying opportunity. If you're one of those people who thinks you're going to see $200,000, $300,000 Bitcoin, this would be a time to buy. If you're worried about it, then don't touch it. That's a simple advice. All right. Hey, there's a company called NVIDIA. I don't want to get too technical here, but you should know why your 401k is moving one way or another, or your IRA. There's a company called NVIDIA. Not many of you have heard of it, but you should, because about 2 years ago, it became the main driver for computer chips that are doing AI-type technology. A lot of the computer chip companies do it, but NVIDIA got really the top market share, and they are considered to be the top computer chip company for AI. I know, that kind of stuff is really technical. Here's where you should care. NVIDIA started to go up when that happened about 2 years ago, and that is why the stock markets have been going up for the most part. There's been a huge amount of investment in NVIDIA and other technology companies now that have anything to do with AI. Now, here's the deal. NVIDIA is going to announce their earnings numbers after the closing bell today at 4 p.m. Eastern. How they did during the Christmas season is what they're going to tell us. And I'm going to tell you, if those numbers aren't good, there's going to be a big, big freak out on Wall Street, and a lot of money is going to get taken off the table. If they do better than expected, that'll be fine. They'll probably just stay the same. If they do a lot better than expected, you could have a really big rally. So my question to you folks is, do you feel lucky? Do you want to bet on the markets before that earnings report comes out? Because if you're doing that, you're really making a bet. We really don't know what their numbers are going to be. So it's an NVIDIA market. That's what you should know about. All right. Now, here's something else you should know about. The cutthroat nature of the injectable weight loss drug war is getting hotter every day. This is really, really intense competition. Now, big pharma giant Eli Lilly is kicking things up a notch by offering lower cost, higher dosage, single-use vials of its Zepbound weight loss injectable for people who can't afford the usual sticker price or can't get the monthly prescription from their insurance. Now, the companies that make it, the two big players in this game are Novo Nordisk, that's a Scandinavian company. They make Ozempic, you've seen those commercials, and Eli Lilly, which makes Zepbound. I have to tell you something, this sounds like what street pushers do, and I'm sorry if anyone from Big Pharma is watching and you're offended, but it just does. That's what street pushers do. They give you a high dose, low cost first hit, sometimes for free, sometimes for a low cost, and then they get you on the comeback. It's the comeback that they get you on. This is what's going to happen, unfortunately, I think, with this Zepbound. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you no one should take the drugs. I'm not saying everyone has great willpower. Willpower, some people might believe, is actually even a myth. I hear you. But these drugs rub me the wrong way. They have a lot of side effects. You can never get off them if you want to keep that weight loss, by the way. And now they're doing things like street pusher games. It really doesn't look good to me. But hey, if doctors are prescribing it, I guess we have to trust them. But I'm staying away from those drugs. You should probably too. Now, the airline business, that's another business that's having problems right now. They've been taking some PR hits lately, no thanks to some air traffic control issues. And this incident in Chicago yesterday won't help. Check it out as a Southwest Airlines jet about to land at Midway Airport pulls up at the last second. Because you see that? There goes that little private jet right in the runway. Oh, my goodness. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating, of course. So is the owner of the private jet, the company known as FlexJet. Preliminary reports say it was the private jet that was told by air traffic control to hold this position. It either didn't hear it or didn't listen. That is a really, really frightening video. That would have been a major, major tragedy, would have knocked out a major airport for God knows how long. And yeah, thanks, control room, for showing that in a loop. Unbelievable. All right. Hey, time for some good news. I'm not all gloomy and I'm not all preachy this morning. Home Depot, it reported better than expected profits and its first comparable same-store sales numbers that were better in 2 years for the Christmas season. So you went to Home Depot for the Christmas season. Now, the reason why this is good news is more than just because of Home Depot. Home Depot shareholders and the people who like to avoid their families by hiding in enormous stores where you can't find anything. The reason why it's good news is because Home Depot is seen as an indicator for the wider economy, especially in the construction and the home improvement business. So if Home Depot is doing well, and we just got news this morning that Lowe's, Home Depot's number one competitor, also did well during the Christmas season, maybe this fear that we're about to go into a major recession, maybe that's not founded. But I will say this, do not take your children into Home Depot on a day when the PA is on the fritz. You'll never see them again if they get lost. Anyway, Home Depot shares rose 3% in trading yesterday on that good news. So again, I'm not all bad news, folks. Okay, control room, let's start our engines. With some good news, some more good news. According to new data from Cox Automotive, the average price of a new vehicle in the U.S. went down 2.2% in January to $48,641. I know that's still pretty pricey, but that January dip was the first monthly drop in 5 months. So we're finally seeing a break here. Thank goodness. All right, so how should you spend your money on if you're really caring about reliability and and safety as your top concern? I'm glad you asked, because Consumer Reports' annual car survey just came out, and here are 3 of the top choices. I think I actually got 4 in the top categories. The top mid-size car was the Toyota Camry. The top mid-size SUV was the Toyota Highlander. Seeing a pattern here. The top small pickup, though, that was the Ford Maverick, and the top small car was the Nissan Sentra. Hey, Nissan, isn't that great news? I've been talking for a couple weeks now about how Nissan got dumped by Honda, is feeling very, very bad about itself, wondering if it's fat. It turns out its small car was the number 1 recommended car by Consumer Reports. Hey, all kidding aside, Consumer Reports isn't a very sexy magazine. It's not Car and Driver. It's not Motor Trend. They don't sponsor pace cars. They don't do races, but this is what they do. And I've been in the television news industry for more than 30 years. It is very hard to find someone outside of Consumer Reports to give you an honest review of a car. Almost all those other publications I mentioned deal with sponsorships and things like that. So I'm not saying they're lying, but they're a little bit biased sometimes. Consumer Reports, boring, I get it. But they give very good reliability reports, and you might want to check them out. All right. The top by the way, the top Consumer Reports electric car was a Tesla Model Y. Now, I know I spend a significant amount of time on this program making fun of electric vehicles. I don't really mean to do that. I believe there is a place for electric cars in the vehicle market. Like 10% of a place. I'm not kidding, because they're almost there. The data shows that in January, electric vehicles in the United States had 9.1% of the sales. So again, I don't mean to be harsh, but the thing is, if you watch the other news organizations out there, their reports on cars, or if you take a look at other kinds of reports in the news media, all they ever do is talk about electric cars. And the car companies themselves talk about it. You would think it's more than half the market already. It's not. Because, again, it's unrealistic. We need to have a little perspective. 9.1% of the market is 9.1% of the market. It's not even 10%. That's about all we can do with electric cars. That's the demand for them. I think they have a place in the market, but my goodness, all they ever do is talk about electric cars. I have to make fun of them a little bit because really most Americans don't want them. The ones who can buy them, good for you. That's fantastic. All right, on a similar note, there's always been a lot of hype about self-driving cars in the news media. But that's the opposite kind of hype. Whenever you see a story about a self-driving car in the news media, it's usually about an accident or some kind of problem with self-driving cars. But a new survey shows that Americans are much more comfortable with self-driving cars with every passing year. Now, for those of you watching who don't agree with that, I just have one request to make of you. Before you get really upset about self-driving cars, before you say they're too dangerous, so you don't trust them, and you'd like to see them eliminated from the marketplace, I just want you to remember one word: disability. There are millions of Americans with disabilities who are chained to their homes, who have no access to a real full life, can't even get to their doctor's appointments, and they live in places where getting an Uber or getting a cab isn't really an option, and if they do, of course, they get bankrupt really quickly. Those are expensive. Self-driving cars give people with slight disabilities and sometimes with major disabilities a chance to get around while still being responsible on the roads. So before you say you don't want to see them anymore, remember those people. You might still come to your same conclusion that you don't like them, but I'm asking you to consider them. That is something I've been doing for a long time and trying to talk about. All right, coming up, Republicans in Congress are showing their true colors, I think, some of those Republicans, by pushing back on Elon Musk and Doge. Are they just really part of the swamp? We'll talk about that in just a second. And something is happening at the southern border that we haven't seen in 15 years. And this time it's something good. The details will be legally migrating your way when American Sunrise Early Edition continues. It's Wednesday, February 26th. Here are some of the top stories this morning. The focus remains on the Doge cost-cutting crusade. But meanwhile, the House just narrowly passed the Trump budget bill with trillions of dollars worth of tax cuts. Now the battle moves to the Senate. Can you say progress? Southern border alien encounters are down to a 15-year low. Promises made, promises kept. The long tradition of top news media organizations deciding who gets access to the Oval Office and the White House press room is over. The Trump team says it will now act as the gatekeepers, and it won't keep anybody big out anyway. And this is a story that I predict will go national. Texas Governor Greg Abbott smells a rat in the state's lottery system that could be a sign of a nationwide rigging of all the big lotto games. You didn't think you really had a chance to win, did you? American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. A special welcome to those of you watching on Getter and Rumble and the Getter chat. You ask and I receive. I asked you to tell me what's the northernmost point in America where you can get palm trees with the climate. The answer is Newport Beach, California. Thank you for everyone who gave me that answer. I've always wanted to know, like, how far south do you got to go before you can see a palm tree? Now I know. By the way, I like hearts of palm. So if anyone wants to send me those for my salad, I'll be very happy. Hey, joining me now is Daily Signal politics editor Bradley Devlin. And first I want to ask you about this budget bill passing the House overnight and how that big win for the Trump administration is the Trump White House. But I also want to ask you about how some of those same Republicans in the House who voted for this bill are supposedly pushing back on Elon Musk and Doge right now. And I want to know about, again, that win for the Trump administration, or whether you think this Republican skittishness about Elon Musk is getting any traction. So those two topics to start, Bradley.
Yeah, well, let's start with the budget resolution. And we have to remember, this is just a resolution. This is basically outlining the rules of the game for the policies that the House and Senate are going to make in order to pass the MAGA agenda. We've seen the Senate move on a 2-bill reconciliation strategy in their budget resolution, but they are shocked to a certain degree that the House was able to pass this 1-bill deal. It is a big win for the Trump administration. But the real win is actually getting the policies that the administration needs in order to deliver on the agenda, whether that's in border security, very importantly, especially as we talk about trying to lower costs on energy. And then, of course, we have the tax cuts. $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, $2 trillion in cuts, and 880 billion of those coming from the House Energy and Commerce Committee. That's going to be a difficult road to hoe. So we'll see how things play out as the Senate's probably going to be able to adopt quickly a one bill resolution strategy, and then they're going to have to make their policies in the certain committees and kind of reconcile them between one another after passing. So that's going to be interesting to see as it plays out. As for the Doge Musk thing, these Republicans are frustrated at the executive branch because this is exactly what we talk about in the Federalist Papers, right? You want to pit ambition against ambition, knowing that human nature is good, but also this mix of fallenness. And so the genius of the founders was, we're going to pit the executive branch versus the legislative branch, and they're going to butt heads, and hopefully the result is going to be the best for the American people. And so with the executive being assertive, with Trump and Doge, well, a lot of Republicans have to go back to their districts and answer for that, and they're not necessarily looped in on everything that the executive branch is doing. And frankly, for good reason, they're not looped in, or else they would be the president of the United States. So you're going to have skirmishes like this. It's a natural part of the constitutional order. I don't think they're mad that Elon Musk is finding cuts, finding waste, finding fraud, finding abuse. It's they are the ones that are having to hold the bag right now. And once those Doge policies are incorporated into what Congress is doing in terms of budget reconciliation and appropriations, I think everyone will be much happier. Everybody will be on the same page, and they'll be able to move forward.
Thank you so much. And by the way, thank you for clarifying that being a budget bill resolution, setting up the parameters. That's an important clarification. You mentioned it just briefly, that the border, and I think the border was arguably a bigger issue for the voters in this last presidential election than even the budget and even debts and even taxes. So I'd love to get your reaction to the news that came out yesterday that southern border illegal alien encounters have hit a 15-year low. Now, I don't think this is necessarily an unrelated story. If you get these kinds of successes at the border, can it help President Trump get momentum for some of his other goals of this administration?
Well, I want to jump right back to the budget conversation really quick. Yeah, don't understate the win, though, Jake. I mean, you were right to point out that this is a massive win for the Trump administration, especially after the whipping effort that had to take place. This is a massive win, most importantly, for Johnson. I mean, if Johnson failed on this, it would be very difficult for Johnson to find a meaningful path forward that includes a 1-bill strategy. He might have had to go to a 2-bill strategy. So I don't want to discount it. It's just the devil is in the details, as they said. The reason that the Biden administration failed previously in its attempt to raise the minimum wage and do all these other things via budget reconciliation was because they screwed up the resolution, which handcuffed them. As for the border, yeah, absolutely. This is the #1 campaign promise from the Trump administration, from the Trump campaign. Delivering on it is crucially important. Not only are you seeing these border crossings plummet, but you're also seeing a number of self-deportations. Migrants are using roads that they once came up through to get to the United States to go back to their home country. So there is a level of self-deportation here. I think what's interesting, though, is as they experience as they experience these kinds of successes, Tom Homan, others in the administration have been honest with Congress, saying that if we want to scale this up, if we want to undo the damage that has been done by the Biden administration and 30 plus years of poor border enforcement, well, we're going to need resources from you all. So showing that the Border Patrol is using these resources that they already have competently gives Congress a longer leash to give them more of those resources. And what are those resources going to be used towards? Well, of course, we know there's going to be wall and there's going to be more enforcement at the southern border. But what about ideas like taxing remittances? We don't do that on a federal level, and we are the #1 country that sends wages earned here back to other countries. Other states, such as Oklahoma, have policies that are taxing remittances. They tax all remittances under $500 at $5, and over $500, it's taxed at 1%. Maybe that's something that could earn revenue, or a border adjustment tax, which is both a tariff, a trade tariff mechanism and an immigration mechanism to a certain degree. What about workplace enforcement? How is Congress going to approach that? We've seen recently lawsuits trying to prevent the Trump administration from doing deportation operations in schools and churches. Well, people can only hide out in those places for so long. They have to go to work. And that's where you can find a lot of these folks and deport a lot of these folks. It's not going to look like massive raids with guns. I mean, maybe unless someone's a criminal, but it's going to look like, hey, show up at a work site, talk to the managers involved, talk to the people on the ground there, ask them to see their paperwork, with knowledge, right? This isn't just random checks, but with knowledge that they are going to find people who have abused this system and send them home, right? That's what needs to be done. And the Trump administration needs the resources to do it. And having these early successes sets them on the right path.
Hey, Bradley, I only have about a minute left, so can you give us a preview? You have a very interesting piece in the Daily Signal now. You speak to a former USAID office official talking about how corrupt it is. Can you give us a little bit of a preview of that? Just have about 30, 40 seconds left.
Yeah. So this is an interview that I did with Max Primorak. He was the chief operating officer for a time at the USAID under the first Trump administration. He breaks down everything that happened with USAID in the last few months, but also goes back to his early times working as a member of an NGO in Eastern Europe, interacting with USAID for the first time and seeing those just beginning parts of corruption. This is an interview that I did for the Signal Sit Down, which is my weekly interview show. This week we'll have on Jim Justice, Senator Jim Justice, and Baby Dog. So check that out. This Max Primorak episode, though, was picked up by Elon, and it is a must watch for you to figure out exactly what went wrong with USAID.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to hear it. It's just an incredible story of corruption. Probably corrupt at the core. I think maybe the first few years under JFK, that was it, but after that, I just think it was used as basically some kind of a political money laundering operation. Bradley Devlin, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, David Brody and I will discuss the new White House access rules laid down by Caroline Leavitt. Is it censorship? Or is it just finally injecting some sanity and fairness into the way the presidency is covered in the modern era? Emphasis on the word modern. Stay with us. You're looking live at, well, that's not live. It's just a beauty shot of Anchorage, Alaska. Isn't this the time of the year where they have no light in those places? Man, that's really bad for your mental health. But some of those, I guess you love it out there. If you do morning television news, like I've been doing for years or did really early, and you have to sleep during the day, maybe working in Alaska is a good idea. You don't have to worry about pulling the shades down. These are the things you think about when you work crazy hours. So welcome back. I'm Jake Novak. This is American Sunrise Early Edition, and this is the time in the show where we look into the mind and the soul of our colleague David Brody, and he has something to talk about today because we have this incredible and yet. Yeah, the mind and the soul. This is the metaphysical part of the show where I look within the souls of you. No, just kidding. But we had something very not metaphysical, something very, very tangible yesterday from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. Let's hear what she has to say about the new rules about White House access.
As you all know, for decades, a group of D.C.-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility.
All right, so basically saying the news media doesn't get to choose anymore who gets to be in these briefings, and I think, if I'm not wrong, this is alluding to the fact that there are some outlets that actually get more of an audience than at any given night on a CNN or an MSNBC, and they need to get access. So to me, that's the headline. Of course, the people are freaking, the usual suspects are freaking out about this. What's your take on all of this, David?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I know this atmosphere very well. I've been around it for decades now. Let's start with this. No one's being kicked out of the briefing room, okay? These legacy media outlets, the White House Correspondents Association, they're all there. They've got their seats. That's that. We're talking about press pool events. What does that mean? When you go into the Oval Office, when you go to Air Force One, where you follow the president around town or on the road. That's what we're talking about. And there's an actual set of journalists that are handpicked by the White House Correspondents Association. It's a rotating pool. That's what the White House is talking about here. Now, full disclosure, Jake, I am a current member of the White House Correspondents Association. I've been a member before in the past. This whole thing to me is utterly ridiculous because, let's be clear, if the White House was cutting off the White House Correspondents Association from covering the president, hello, I'd be right at the top of at the gate right there saying, I doth protest. That's ridiculous. You can't do that. That's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. Not only do they have seats still in the briefing room, but beyond all of that, let me be very clear. The White House Correspondents Association, the journalists that make up that group, are still going to be at the press pool events. In other words, if you have NBC, ABC, CBS, any one of the big legacy media, and believe me, one of them will always be in the room. They're just talking about other people in the room. But one of them will be in the room. Well, one of those members, all of those members, are White House Correspondent Association members. So you're therefore, the White House Correspondents Association is being represented in those or will be represented in those press pool events going forward. So this idea that that they have to give an accurate accounting regarding the president's doings in that day, well, they are. I mean, if you have a White House Correspondent Association person in the room, which there will be at least one, maybe more, then what's the problem? I'm still trying to figure it out. It's not like their access is being curtailed. What they don't like is that the decision is being made by the White House. But once again, if the decision was no White House Correspondent Association reporters at all will cover the president ever, yeah, I got a problem with that big time. Absolutely. But in this case, they're still there. I don't see why this really needs to be a big deal.
And of course, the elephant in the room is that this is the most successful president of all time. He tells you what he's thinking on his own. He's already had more press encounters than Biden had in all 4 years by some factor of 3, something like that. I mean, come on, let's not ignore that fact.
Yeah, well, let's also make very clear. So we've got journalists now concerned about access and transparency to the most accessible and transparent president in United States history. I mean, that's basically what they're saying. It feels a little bit like Doge and the folks, the Democrats saying, you know, waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm for it. I'm for it. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, wait a minute, hold on, what? It makes no sense, Jake. Oh, I got a lather. Wait, what does that even mean? I got a lather. Anyhow, I'm lathered up.
Yeah, well, that's good because you got 2 more hours to go. American Sunrise, the 8 to 10 a.m. show, starting in just a few moments. Don't forget to catch that. This has been American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak, and I will see you tomorrow.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday. There's a lot to talk about, and it's going to continue today. Of course, on Capitol Hill, there's going to be a potential budget vote. We're going to talk about that more.
However, some Republican members are hesitant to support it. They're saying due to the cuts in things like Medicaid and food assistance programs.
This is a congressional Rubik's Cube. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the Republicans can't lose one vote. And Tim Burchett is a no on this. Tim Burchett's a no. Publicly he said no, I'm not voting for it.
This is not a perfection bill. The resolution bill is not. It gets us over to the reconciliation process where we can work out these things.
Here's what we know is that we have to be certain that we act on President Trump's agenda. He laid this agenda out. He ran on it. The American people said, we're with you. We want to cut the size of government. We want to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We want to build the wall. We want to address crime in this country. We want to return our standing in the world.
French President Emmanuel Macron, I just like saying that. And by the way, Trump loves the French accent. Did you hear him yesterday? That was hilarious. Anyhow, we met with President Donald Trump at the White House yesterday. The two men focused on one of Europe's main priorities. Of course, that would be peacefully ending the war in Ukraine.
It's about leadership. It's about strength. It's about coming up with a plan and a solution. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing. But it's really interesting to see some of the pushback from many in the media about resolving all of this. It's almost like they want to continue funding. The Democrats want to continue to keep adding spending on funding the war in Ukraine, and Democrats are just really committed to that.
In California, there are new immigration enforcement operations currently taking place near Los Angeles. It isn't quite known how many illegal aliens were detained in these new ICE operations, but they've been carrying them out. And those similar operations in Chicago, New York, Boston, I mean, name a big city, it's going on. Los Angeles, like other Democrat-run cities, have enacted sanctuary city policies for illegal aliens.
This is ICE, ERO, their enforcement removal operation, fugitive operation. This is what they do. They go out in our communities and look for those criminal aliens or those aliens that have overstayed their visas or have been ordered deported. And we have weekly teleconferences and we talk about what's going on, where we can assist and things of that nature. But it truly is a partnership out here in Texas, and Texas continues to make sure we push that forward.
Ahead on American Sunrise, House Republicans paved the way for President Trump to get his one big, beautiful budget bill. Over the next 2 hours, we'll be talking about the tax and spending cuts included in that measure and the one Republican who voted against it. Plus, we'll have a live report from Washington as the Congressional Subcommittee on DOGE meets again today to discuss the shocking amount of money spent at USAID. Judicial pushback against President Trump could be hurting the American people. So why are judges continuing to limit implementation of President Trump's America First agenda? We'll ask a congressman that very question. And President Trump is set to hold his first cabinet meeting today as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says that illegal encounters at the border are hitting record lows. Ahead, why that likely won't be the only good news he'll be getting during today's meeting. Those stories and so much more right now on American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina. Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina. We are live with you from the Palm Beaches. Let's bring in David Brody. He's in Washington, D.C., and T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Dr.
Gina.
and David, good morning.
T, good morning.
Hey, guys, so look,
hello.
there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the big story today is the budget, the House finally passing that. We're going to be talking a bit more about that really over the next couple of hours. Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia is going to join us in a moment to give us his perspective. But one of the big stories, guys, that I'm eyeing is President Trump's first cabinet meeting, which is happening today. And in quotation marks, parentheses, and kind of the highlight of this meeting is that Elon Musk is going to be attending that meeting, even though he's not a cabinet member. I find that fascinating, to put it lightly, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a special guest of the president. Oh, well, he's definitely a special guest of the president. All I have to say is, the media and the Democrats are going to go bonkers over this one. But all I want to say, Gina, is this is an upgrade over Jill Biden attending cabinet meetings. That's all I have to say.
Or Hunter.
Or Hunter.
Or Hunter, who was apparently acting president for the last, we don't even know how long of his term. And at least the president in question now is somebody who's mentally beyond competent, right? Obviously holding more press avails than any other, very accessible, answering all the questions. Everything he does is on a transparent level. So having Elon there, yeah, so what? Let the Democrats have their little wasp swarm over this, right? Let them have their little hotbed mess over this. And because this is a non-issue. If this is the biggest thing they have to say, if this is what they're really concerned about, not the amazing things that Elon is getting out of our corrupt government. But the fact that he's present, the guy who's doing all these great things is present in a meeting, if that's the biggest thing they've got,
Hey,
believe
Dr.
them.
Gina, before your Bible verse, really quickly, I'd love to get your perspective on Byron Donalds running for Florida governor. What's the atmosphere like there in Florida? Ron DeSantis, I hear, not very happy.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of rumors about how Ron DeSantis is going to respond to this, and I don't like to talk about rumors on this program, but there are a lot of them. I would love to see Ron DeSantis come in and support Donald Trump's pick for Florida governor. And not only that, really the people's pick. The Republican Party loves this guy. He is so approachable. I see him at events. You walk right up to him. Can I tell you something? I raised a lot of money for Ron DeSantis when he ran. I could not get a hold of him if my life depended on it. Literally could not get a hold of him. Don't know him, have no relationship with him. And I'm just a nobody, a citizen, right? But I'm that same nobody citizen to Byron Donalds. And Byron Donalds, I can walk right up to him. He's at every event. He's extremely accessible. I have his cell phone number. You guys probably all do too. It's a different day in politics. Ron DeSantis wants to go back to the days where political people were elites. That's not what Byron Donalds is. And the people of Florida have spoken pretty clearly. And so we have
All
our
right,
Bible
give
verse.
us our Bible verse, please.
Let's
with that.
do that.
Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Gina.
They got me all riled up there, T.
How dare you, T?
Psalm 32:8, and it reads, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. I love this topic. I will guide you with my eye. A lot of people gloss right over that. But you know what? Someday we need to have a conversation about that. David, Brody, you get on that, okay? Listen, as we mentioned last night, the House narrowly passed President Trump's big, beautiful bill that includes $4.5 trillion in tax breaks and $2 trillion in spending cuts. And later this morning, the DOJ subcommittee will begin its hearing on America Last, how foreign and undermined U.S. interests. I think it should say how foreign. I don't know what it says. I don't know what that says. How foreign aid, there I see it in the headline, how foreign aid undermined U.S. interests around the world. It's not like we don't know that happened, but I think that's going to become as apparent as all of the crazy spending programs that he is eliminating as well. A DOJ subcommittee press release states members during the hearing will expose egregious foreign aid spending that has undermined U.S. interests, review proposed reforms, and aid the Trump administration's efforts to rein in America's bloated bureaucracy. Subcommittee Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says what DOJ has uncovered with USAID is shocking and also just the tip of the iceberg. Joining us now to discuss both the budget deal and DOJ is GOP Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia. Congressman, welcome. Last night, the House passed this big, beautiful budget bill. Take us inside the vote. What surprised you? What's the dynamic? What's the inside? Because I know there's always a lot more going on there than meets the eye of the public.
Well, good morning, Dr. Gina.
Good morning.
And y'all. I will tell you, the House is keeping it interesting. I'll tell you that. Last night, we were expecting 3 votes, and we ended up with 2 initially, and we had some holdouts, some folks that just weren't quite there yet because of some specific issues. And so, the House almost adjourned for the evening, and then just a few minutes before we thought it was the last vote, all of a sudden we had the vote was back on, and I was very happy for that. I was very supportive of this budget resolution. I supported it in the Budget Committee where I serve, and then also on the House floor. And I encouraged other members as well. And I'll tell you that 100% of the Freedom Caucus voted for this bill.
Congressman, how important is this DOJ subcommittee hearing just in terms of understanding real government efficiency?
Well, I'll tell you, this is putting sunlight on problems, and that's really the best thing you can possibly do. And every time that either Doge comes out, Elon Musk comes out and sends, this bizarre finding, like, for example, $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq, that we actually spent that kind of money on such a ridiculous thing, or transgender surgeries in Guatemala. I mean, all of these things are shocking to the American people, that our government would spend this kind of money and spend anything like that overseas or even in this country itself. That is not what our government is supposed to be doing with taxpayer dollars. And so for this subcommittee, led by Marjorie, to do this, I think is a phenomenal thing. The message will get out to the American people of all of the waste, fraud, and abuse that has been exposed in our government. And I think that's a very good thing.
Congressman, the budget that you and or the budget framework, I guess I should say, that you and your colleagues passed yesterday is all about implementing President Trump's agenda. You've also been, though, very vocal about judges who aren't necessarily on board and allowing the president's agenda to be implemented. You've even floated the idea of filing articles of impeachment against a Rhode Island district judge over a decision to stop President Trump's efforts to pause federal grant and loan funding. So I'm curious if you're moving forward with the articles of impeachment, and do you see any legal basis in the various injunctions that have been filed against the president's agenda?
Well, yes, we are moving forward with impeachment proceedings. I've read the articles. We're waiting for text to come back. so that we can file those. There are so many judges now that have decided to become political activists, and what they're doing is denying the American people their right to have their president implement their policies that they voted for, and this is simply unacceptable. The American people overwhelmingly put President Trump into office with a national mandate to do what he promised on the campaign trail to do, and now these judges, through their orders, are denying the president his correct Article 2 authority. I mean, if you look at the very first line in Article 2 of the Constitution, all right, it says the executive power is vested in a president. That the entire executive branch, the reason they can do anything is because of an elected president, and that's Donald J. Trump. So for these judges to deny him that legitimate executive authority is absolutely wrong, and it violates our Constitution and the principles of the separation of powers.
Congressman, I want to go back to the budget for a quick second. And to be clear, what you passed, what the House passed, was the framework for the big, beautiful bill, that one big, beautiful bill. You obviously did not pass the bill itself, which is interesting because everybody talked about last night how that was crazy, and you got it through. You could only afford one defection, and that was Thomas Massie. There was just one, which is great. But now the hard part. I mean, this is where the hard part starts to begin, budget reconciliation. But even before you get to that, you've got to have a House and Senate conference committee on this bill and figure out what's going to go forward. So how hard will that be? And what's the timetable here exactly? I'm hearing maybe April on the House floor, because you got to get those 2 Florida Republican House seats in there to have more wiggle room, and then maybe something to the president by May. What's your sense?
Well, you're right about having the 2 additional members of Congress sworn in. That's going to happen about the first part of April. So we should have those extra members to help us move this reconciliation bill forward. But the hard work does begin right now. What we passed last night was just the framework. It basically tells every committee, whether they can spend money or whether they need to save money. And so they've got their marching orders right now. So every committee is going to be delving into the spending that they can cut, that they can save the American people, and then how we're going to move forward on President Trump's agenda regarding tax cuts. Because he promised the American people an extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was signed into law in 2017. And we are going to do that. We're not going to let the American people have a 22% on average increase in their taxes, in their federal taxes. So President Trump's promises are going to be kept through this particular budget resolution and the spending cuts and the tax cuts that are part of it. It's going to be hard work, but we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Congressman Andrew Clyde, thanks so much for updating us on all of this. Keep us posted.
Thank you very much, y'all. Great to be on Morning Sunrise.
Great to have you. Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the RAV newsroom with T. Bates. And later, why did it take so long to prioritize Americans over illegals? It's amazing what's happening at our southern border when it's secured, but at what cost? More American Sunrise coming up.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Wrigley Field in Chicago. Haven't been there. I need to get into a game. I've been to Chicago, and yet I've never been to Wrigley Field. That's a bucket list situation for me. I got to do it so I can watch the Cubs lose. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Coming up, illegal immigration. We've talked about it all the time. How about the gravy train financially for the illegal immigrants here in America, costing taxpayers money and basically taking services away from Americans here at home? I say basically, they are doing that. First, though, T. Bates standing by with the latest headlines for the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
President Trump is out with his latest executive order that would create a legal pathway to citizenship for people looking to enter the United States.
We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship.
We're all going to be vetted. Everybody who comes in gets vetted, okay? They get vetted, so you got to, we're going to begin in 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
So this gold card program is aimed at replacing a 35-year-old investor visa program called the EB-5, which was created to generate foreign investment. The commander-in-chief saying that his updated program is for wealthy people who he expects to spend lots of money and pay lots of taxes here in the U.S. The replacement program comes as the Congressional Research Service reports that the EB-5 visa program posed risk of fraud, including verification that funds were obtained legally. While the president is addressing one aspect of the immigration issue, the U.S. House is moving forward with funding for a broader solution to the border crisis. Tuesday, the Republican-led chamber advanced its budget plan, with Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie being the only Republican to vote no. The spending plan includes money for President Trump's border security and mass deportation plan. It also addresses President Trump's $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. However, it's only a first step and likely will change during the reconciliation process, during which the House and Senate will try to merge their versions of a budget. The House version of the bill seeks $2 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years. The current budget, by the way, expires March 14. President Trump will hold the first cabinet meeting of his second administration today. Elon Musk is going to be there. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed Musk's attendance on Tuesday during a press briefing at the White House.
Elon, considering he is working alongside the president and our cabinet secretaries, this entire administration, will be in attendance tomorrow just to talk about DOJ's efforts and how all of the cabinet secretaries are identifying waste, fraud, and abuse at their respective agencies.
Musk's attendance at today's cabinet meeting comes amid confusion about his directive for federal employees to send emails explaining what they did last week or face losing their jobs. Some secretaries who he'll meet with today told their employees to ignore that email. In the meantime, Musk is also dealing with the loss of 21 employees who resigned from DOJ on Tuesday in protest, saying that they refused to use their skills as part of the government downsizing effort. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit, including reimagining funding for securing the border and putting America first. Why Borders Are Tom Homan says the money that was used to help illegals can now be used to help real Americans instead. And later, are you scared that you may be at risk for dementia? In moments, we'll share some insights that can help limit your risk. Right now, though, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this day in 1983 that Michael Jackson's Thriller album went #1 and stayed there for a whopping 37 weeks. Thriller went on to be one of the best-selling albums of all time, selling over 70 million copies worldwide. The Thriller music video also redefined what music videos could be. It was cutting edge at the time, if you remember. I do. More American Sunrise coming your way in just 2 minutes. To quote David Brody, "Come on, you know it."
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. How the Thunder this year? I think they're good. I don't know. I don't really pay much attention to pro basketball anymore. I used to. I'm sorry, I'm just going off here on a riff. It's not on prompter. And anytime it's not on prompter, that is dangerous for not just me, but for all of America. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Thanks for being here with us this morning. We really appreciate all you patriots out there in the audience. Time now to discuss the illegal immigration financial gravy train. Border czar Tom Homan says billions of dollars can be saved by not funding illegal immigrant benefit programs, and instead that money can be used to help Americans, like homeless veterans, for example. Homan says past presidents like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama talked a good game. They said the right things, but didn't walk the walk. Take a look.
I've been doing this 41 years. I started in 1984 in the Border Patrol. And yeah, and Clinton and Obama said the right things. They talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk because the agencies didn't really get into the misuse of these social services, social funding. And President Biden fell off the face of the earth with it. We're in the multi-billions of dollars. And 130,000 of social services per illegal alien, that's more than most Americans make a year.
You got to love Tom Homan. For more, let's bring in former DHS advisor, former Secret Service special agent, and author of the book Terrorist on the Border and in Our Country. That would be Charles Marino, a good friend of the show. Charles, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Boy, Tom Homan, he's like right out of central casting, as Donald Trump would say. He has praised Doge because he says, Charles, that these billions of dollars that we're going to save that illegal aliens shouldn't be getting can help rebuild places like, for example, North Carolina after the floods, California regarding the fires, or the flooding victims in Kentucky. So I'm curious to get your reaction to all of this taxpayer money that should be helping Americans and not illegals, and whether or not it will really happen.
Well, I think it can easily happen. I think Tom's right on the money here, no pun intended. But what I'll tell you right now is that we've got to put dollars back towards the American public instead of those that are in the country illegally. We know that billions of dollars have been sent to social services, the welfare state, to non-governmental organizations over the years, and this has been adding up to significant amounts of money. And a lot of other people are getting rich off of this besides the American public. So what Tom says in his thesis is exactly right. And there's a lot of ways to do this. We knew that the mass deportation efforts of the Trump administration would ultimately save American taxpayers money based on how many illegals Biden let into the country, anywhere from 10 to 15 million. So in the long run, money gets returned to the American people. And, you know, another idea that I've often spoken about is why are we not taking the funds from sanctuary cities, especially federal public safety grants, and shifting that to states that do want to be part of the solution, right? Why should Texas have to take billions of dollars out of their own budget to secure the southwest border? And yet New York continues to serve as a pull factor for this illegal migration, protects criminals and national security threats. So we've got a lot of things backwards here, but I think ultimately with the focus on the American people, it's the right way to go, and you win all day long.
Mm-hmm. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says thanks to President Trump's historic crackdown on illegals, encounters at the southern border have dropped dramatically. Noem said this past Saturday, Border Patrol agents encountered just 200 illegals at the southern border. That figure, wow, she says, is the lowest single apprehension day in more than, get this, 15 years. How has America shifted under the Trump administration? I want to ask you a straight up, sort of just down home question. Did you ever think, I mean, I heard criticisms, I know you heard them too, of, Kristi Noem's only ever been governor of a small state, and this person that, and this person that, all these little criticisms. Doesn't this prove that you can take, I don't want to say a ragtag team, but a team of people who just have their hearts in the right place? They may not all have graduated from the upper echelon Ivy League schools, and they may not have all been governors of massive states and U.S. senators before they took on these positions, but with a lot of heart and a lot of stick-to-itiveness, right? How people can band together, real people, and get things done. Has that occurred? Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I mean, look, it's putting the country first, and it's putting forth an effective, comprehensive strategy that's going to have the highest probability for success. The first thing it does is it debunks the myth that the Biden administration and the Democratic Party were spinning for the last 4 years, which is you can't secure the border without overall immigration reform. We always knew that was a farce, and this proves my case, right? We've been saying this for a long period of time, so stop the nonsense. They just didn't want to secure the border, and they created this crisis. As far as how these numbers are going down, look, we've restored deterrence. And what's the strategy? It's based on tough messaging, right? People have to know you say what you mean, and you mean what you say. We've seen tough diplomacy with countries like Mexico, Canada, and others along the path of migration. And guess what else we've seen? This little thing called enforcing the laws of the country. And all of this creates deterrence around the world. And so we're seeing this multifaceted whole of government strategy bringing everything to the fight here. And it's working. It's having great success. And nobody should be surprised by this. This is what it took from the very beginning.
I'd love to get your perspective on President Trump's new gold card visa program that's going to cost people about $5 million and allow them to. I
love it.
You love it? Okay, great. So let's talk about it more specifically. Then I won't even continue then. I'd like to get your perspective on how you see it ultimately rolling out and the vetting of the people who ultimately pay this $5 million in order to get the gold card. Please go.
Well, Terrance, let me tell you, this is from the mind of a businessman, and it's about time we catch up with the way the rest of the world does business. You know how many countries have programs exactly like this? There are some people with dual citizenship to 3 or 4 different countries that when you ask them for a passport, it's like they pull out a deck of cards.
Yep.
This is the way the world works. This is how investment comes to countries. This is how people create jobs. You build it into the requirements and you say, look, you want to have this in your wallet? Well, guess what? It's going to cost you an initiation fee of $5 million, and here are the other requirements. Of course, we need to hear more about this program. I think it's so funny how the first thing that President Trump's getting grilled about is vetting. Meanwhile, there were no questions under the Biden administration about where the $15 million that were being allowed into the country illegally being vetted.
Oh my gosh, great point.
Which they know they weren't. So, look, this is the way we got to think about the future. I'm a big fan of this. And look, Israel does it. Cyprus does it. I mean, I could go on and on with a list of countries that have an initiation fee like this to be able to carry one of their passports.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a great idea, and I just have to tell you that EB-5 visa that's been around, obviously, for a bit, but it took $800,000 to $1 million or so to get into the program. That's what it is now. You have to pay about $1 million. Trump wants to up it to $5 million, and you got to create jobs here in the United States as well. And what I love about it specifically is that it'll all go down to paying the debt and debt and deficit here in this country. So he was talking about yesterday, I think if you only get 1 million people, just 1 million, to pay the $5 million, I mean, that's going to do a little bit in terms of paying down the debt. But then if you get, let's say, 10 million people, 5 to 10 million, you can pay off the whole deficit. It's just fascinating. All right, Charles Marino, great to have you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, thank you. Good to see you.
You too.
Absolutely fascinating. I love it. The Trump Gold Visa plan coming to a credit card near you. No, it's a Visa, not that Visa. Coming up, overwhelming support for Doge cuts. And it's not, by the way, just coming from Republicans. Wait until you hear about the percentage of Democrats who are also supporting Doge's efforts. And later, a blast from the past. Oi Gavolt time. Hanoi Jane, yes, Jane Fonda, at it again with her left-wing politics. What she said while accepting an award the other day is so woke. Much more ahead on American Sunrise here on a Hump Day Wednesday.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us. Time now for today's health news. That is, of course, sponsored by the Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, how a small amount of light exercise can reduce your risk of dementia. What is it about the moving and just getting that blood pumping that does that? Well, new research from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore, Maryland, says that researchers have discovered 5 minutes, you guys, of light exercise daily could help prevent dementia. The study also discovered that if someone was doing 35 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every week, well, that lowers the risk of dementia by 41%, you guys, over an average 4-year period. So to summarize, virtually any amount of exercise, even 5 minutes, will significantly lower your chances of developing dementia. Might be worth it, y'all. 5 minutes. Wow. I'm blown away by these numbers. Anyway, it's a new day in America. A new administration in Washington, D.C. That ought to get you moving. A lot of optimism, but the reality is a lot of work to do, too, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system, because it's not going to fix itself overnight. Our system has a lot of challenges, and so now more than ever, you want to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. These doctors and are medical professionals, and you can trust them, and their line of medical prescription kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you healthy. Medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit, whichever one, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications to assist in the proper use of the meds. You have a guidebook that comes with it. So whether it's the flu, strep, COVID, bird flu, a trip to the beach, a trip overseas, guess what? The Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America Healthy Again starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAB today. Give it an order. That's twc.health/RAB. Use the promo code RAB. That'll save you 10%. T-Bates, over to you.
Dr. Gina, thank you so much. Stick around because I want to change gears now from health to saving money, particularly your tax money. The Daily Signal reporting that even some Democrats are now supporting Elon Musk and Doge. A new poll finds that 62% of Americans support Doge's efforts in finding savings in the federal government. That poll also discovered that 45% of Democrats say that President Trump and Doge are significantly reducing government spending. The Daily Signal's White House correspondent Elizabeth Mitchell joining us now to add some perspective to this poll. Elizabeth, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
All right. It is good to have you. This is such an interesting subject. While some Americans seem overwhelmingly to approve the job that Doge is doing, I'm curious about whether they're overwhelmingly approving Elon Musk, who, of course, is a consultant for the program. Does he enjoy similar public support?
I think that it really does speak volumes that so many Americans on both sides of the political spectrum are saying that they support Doge, because I think we're hearing from a lot of elected Democrats that, of course, Elon Musk is pretending to be president, has this massive takeover of government. We need to block him from accessing federal records so he can't get in there and see government records and cut spending. But I think this poll really does show that the American people elected President Trump because they didn't want their taxpayer dollars going to waste. They were tired of the waste, fraud, and abuse in government, and they were really ready for a change. And so I think it is not too surprising to see that Americans want government waste to be cut so that they know that their taxpayer dollars are going to good use.
There appears, Elizabeth, to be some bad blood between Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw and Tucker Carlson. It appears Crenshaw had some harsh words for Carlson. Take a look.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot.
It's right there. Congressman tried to deny that he said that. He posted on Twitter responding to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, asking if he meant this as an assassination threat, but he denied that was the case. How would you advise him right now?
Of course, that was an extremely inappropriate thing to say. I think that for many years before the age of President Trump, Republicans were able to act conservative for elections and then kind of govern like Democrats. And I think President Trump has really done an interesting job of weeding out people like this and calling them out for what they're doing. So I think it really is a time where lawmakers who run as Republicans need to deliver to voters on those conservative policies that they said they'd deliver on. And I think that's something interesting to watch here.
I do want to talk about one of the latest executive orders that President Trump signed. But since you are the White House correspondent there at the Daily Signal, I'm curious to get your perspective on the new atmosphere at the White House, particularly as a journalist covering the White House. I would imagine it's much different this administration than it was just 2-3 months ago.
I just started a few weeks ago, but from what I've heard from more seasoned White House correspondents and just, of course, from watching the briefings on TV, the energy in the room is just off the charts. Those who don't have seats need to get there hours early to get a good spot because it is just so crowded. Everyone just is really enjoying that Caroline will call on anyone, not just specific legacy media outlets. And so I think that is really inspiring hundreds of journalists to show up to the briefing room, whereas the room was largely empty during the Biden administration.
And I want to ask you a question, too, just from your perspective. This whole animus toward Elon Musk and this whole concern of the left that he's, acting as, some sort of presidential cabinet member when, in fact, he's supposed to be just a consultant. He's coming, of course, to that meeting today with the cabinet. Do you think this benefits, for the things you're saying, do you think this benefits the Democrats to be continually criticizing the process instead of the product of Doge?
I think that's probably the only tactic they really have, because it's really not a good look to be saying, oh, I just can't stand cutting government efficiency. I hate that we're cutting waste, or I hate that we're cutting inefficient employees from government. I think that Elon Musk is a target that makes a lot of sense for them. And even though he formerly had more liberal views, of course, the Democrats have completely rejected him now. And I think him as a target just makes them look a little bit better than attacking Doge itself, I guess.
Do you, just a follow up real quick, Terrance, if I may, do you think that Elon Musk's views have changed, or do you think that Elon Musk has just put his head together with Donald Trump and said, what do we agree on that could make America better? And maybe his views are still the same as they've always been.
It seems like he is fully on board with what President Trump is doing. I'm not sure the extent to which his views have changed, but it seems like as far as the things that most matter to President Trump, it seems like they're on the same page with that, because they've really created a very strong partnership.
Elizabeth Mitchell, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me.
I have a feeling she'll be spending a lot of years in that briefing room. That was fun. Listen, Uber lefty, Hanoi Jane Fonda. I just say the words, and I know that the Twitter chat goes berserk on those words. Well, guys, she's at it again, and I guess the Medusa haircut notwithstanding. She is now trying to rally Hollywood to stand up to the Trump administration. What she said, not going to surprise you, but it is straight ahead. Also later, taxes, stocks, and Social Security. These are the hot issues heading into President Trump's second month in office. How will the president tackle them? The details when we return. The fun starts again in just 2.
Time now to stay awake, not woke, and it's brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company. You're probably enjoying a cup of coffee as we speak, but have you ever wondered where it comes from or where your money goes? Well, in 2024, as an example, Starbucks' top political contribution went to Kamala Harris. That fact will probably wake you up itself, right? And that's why we drink 1775 coffee here on American Sunrise, and why you should as well. 1775 coffee is roasted in Florida by patriots for patriots. It's sourced from small farms in Bolivia, not massive industrial factories. Small farms, small batches, and every fresh roast every month mean that you'll taste and feel the difference, and you'll only get fresh beans in your cup. You may also want to try their darker medium roast for bold flavor, a smooth finish, and zero acidity. And if you need an extra boost in the morning, their mushroom coffee blend is the best out there on the market, and it tastes great. It's made to fuel your mind. If you're a K-Cup drinker, well, don't worry, they've got you covered there as well, and their K-Cups have real coffee inside. Go to 1775coffee.com/RAV and use the code RAV for 10% off of your order. We're obsessed with this coffee here at Real America's Voice, and we believe that you will be as well. We swear by it here in our Denver newsroom, so you can get your cup of coffee and join us when we drink ours. Go to 1775coffee.com/RAV to support the show and to have the best tasting cup of coffee of your life. Use RAV for 10% off. Well, now that we're caffeinated, it is time to stay awake, not woke. And in the cup, left-wing political activist Jane Fonda taking a jab at President Trump while accepting the SAG Lifetime Achievement Award Sunday night. She called on her fellow Hollywood stars to, quote, have empathy for those they don't understand in the current political climate. Here's part of that speech.
Make no mistake, empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people. Back to empathy. A whole lot of people are going to be really hurt by what is happening, what is coming our way. And even if they're of a different political persuasion, we need to call upon our empathy and not judge, but listen from our hearts and welcome them into our tent. Because we are going to need a big tent to resist successfully what's coming at us.
Jane Fonda got her nickname Hanoi Jane back in 1972 during the Vietnam War because she focused her political activism on the anti-war movement. She went on a now famous tour of North Korea, speaking to 10 different radio programs denouncing the U.S. military's policies in Vietnam. Fonda also begged pilots to stop bombing non-military targets there in Vietnam. But it was the picture we're getting ready to show you of her sitting on an anti-aircraft gun in Hanoi that ultimately earned her the infamous nickname Hanoi Jane. This picture here also implied that she supported shooting down American planes. We, of course, want to know what you think about all of this as well. Let us know on Getter and on Rumble. Hop on. Let your voice be heard. Looking forward to what you have to say. I also want to bring in Dr. Gina, though, to talk a little bit about this. Dr. Gina, I'm quite sure, I would bet my mortgage that you've got an opinion on Hanoi Jane.
Annoying Hanoi Jane. Here's the thing. What she says about listening to people and entertaining other values, I just want to pause to say, I think that is one of the more mature things I've heard out of a radical woke leftist in a long time. The rest of what she said is total hogwash. And here's my question for her. If I could sit her down right here on this sofa over here where Colby's laying right now next to me and ask her a question, I would say, what do you have to say, Hanoi Jane, about the fact that if you're so anti-war and you were out there, saying that we shouldn't be at war for all of these decades of your life, she's almost 90 years old, what do you say about the fact that Donald Trump walked in and in scarcely 3 weeks ended many of our international conflicts and wars with almost the flick of a pen, with just a few meetings, making it look easy because that's what people who are really good at things do. They make it look easy. It's not easy. But we sat there for 4 years while Joe Biden lied about everything he was saying and got us deeper and deeper into more and more wars. Millions of people died, Jane, because of Joe Biden's lack of attention to any of the things that Donald Trump just did in 3 weeks. What say you, Jane Fonda? I would love to ask her that question. I don't understand how she can stand there, Terrance, with a straight face and act like Donald Trump is some sort of enemy to peace. It doesn't make sense.
No, I get that, Dr. Gina, and I'll just kind of double down on the idea of having empathy and being open to hearing from other people. I fully agree with that, but I also like to see people who say it put it into action. And my suspicion would be, and I'm probably right here, that she's not willing and probably hasn't sat down and listened to someone who's got a differing opinion and really internalized what they say before responding. I suspect that she's probably not willing to do that and hasn't, and that's something I would encourage all of us to do. And we'll leave it right there, Dr. Gina. We're back in a moment.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. It is time now for our moment of faith that is brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the good folks at the God Bless the USA Bible. In focus today, how diversity, equity, and inclusion is eroding Christian principles. In recent years, there have been more churches that are trying to become more DEI. Christians' commitment to God and the Bible have become almost offensive in modern culture. Modern culture is trying to redefine what a woman is, and that gender is based on identity, not biological sex, but God has assigned genders, and God created humanity, two genders, male and female. I'd like to welcome in the CEO of Promise Keepers, Shane Winnings. Shane, welcome. This whole DEI thing, I mean, it's not only totally insidiously invaded our workplace, but I remember sitting with feminist scholars at the top of their level in grad school, and them talking about how in the 1970s, their goal was to invade the churches with exactly this. This is a planned thing. This isn't something that just happened, right? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And I believe it's a demonic strategy to decay society from within. You know, President Trump brought this up during his campaign. He said, there's an enemy from within. And I believe DEI is one of those enemies. And it goes against the very word of God, which says that God doesn't look at the outward appearance. You know, he wouldn't have chosen David to go up against Goliath if that was the case. But God looks at the heart. God looks and he tests the motives and the intentions of the human heart. And DEI says, we don't really care about your motives and intentions. We care about your skin color and who you sleep with. And so by default, they are actually everything they blame us of being, which is racist, stereotypical, judgmental. If you're a white male Christian who leads a family, you are public enemy number one. And so we've got to bring our nation back to square one, which is, hey, there's two genders, male and female. There's one form of marriage that God recognizes, male and female. And we were created to procreate. And that's the opposite message from DEI.
And, as we sort of watch churches go through this, a lot of pastors have not stood strong on this, Shane, as you know, and this is exactly what your work is every day, is calling them to stand strong, because a lot of them have just backed down to the threats of government to come in and say, oh, you're not separating church and state, which, by the way, is not anywhere in the Constitution. But the left has effectively articulated a false narrative that many pastors have bought into. And even those who don't, they're trying to grow their churches. So this is, I think, what annoys me about so many pastors is that they are not willing to take a strong stand. They're not willing to exhort their congregations on Sunday. They're not willing. They're going to play the music that's popular. They're going to do all the emotional things with none of the intellectual things. And they leave these people in an emotional state that isn't even healthy, let alone Christian.
Right. Yeah. And you said it best. The left has done a great job of articulating and communicating effectively their message. And pastors at large have not. When I hear a pastor say, well, we just preach the gospel here, it's like, well, the gospel looks like something, because when your preteen or your teenage children come up to you and say, what is transgender and how should I feel about that? The answer is not, well, honey, Jesus died on the cross for our sins. Like, there's an actual practical answer. And the Bible says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, there is freedom. And so we know that it's a biblical principle. It's a promise that the truth sets you free. And the problem is that church has become like a business, and it's a business model. And so if I don't get enough butts in seats, well, then the tithes are not going to come in. I'm not going to be able to pay the staff. I'm not going to be able to get that fancy new building we've been campaigning for. And so what happens? Pastors bow to culture. They bow to, whatever the flavor of the week is. We have lost track of the fact that the church exists to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. If we were truly focused on strengthening the body of Christ, then we wouldn't care what anyone thinks. But we have these seeker-friendly churches where, hey, we just want you to belong. We just want you to come in the door. And so if that's going to be our message, then we can't ever say anything controversial, because then you might not come, which means the money might not come. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I crave that exhorting. And when I don't get that in a church, I crave hymns and psalms. I like to sing hymns and psalms, and no guitars in a church, please. But maybe I'm old school. But you know what? My kids love that too. They love exactly what I love. And so I think there's sort of there's a change. There's a sea change coming, I think, in the younger population. And a lot of that, honestly, Shane, is because of the work that you and Promise Keepers are doing. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless you. Back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutes. Stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Coming up on this second hour of American Sunrise, the House narrowly passes a GOP budget blueprint and by doing so takes a step forward in fulfilling the president's goal of one big beautiful funding bill. Ahead, the one Republican who voted against that measure. Plus, the House Subcommittee on DOGE is holding another hearing today, this time on USAID. Is the fact that the hearing was moved to a bigger room an indication that some bombshells are going to come out? And a federal judge denies emergency access for the Associated Press to regain its all-out access to the White House press briefings. So, where does the case go from here? That story and so much more right now on this second hour of American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of American Sunrise. I am Dr. Gina coming to you live from the Palm Beaches. Let's bring in T. Bates from our Denver newsroom. T. Bates, there he is. I knew he was coming. He always shows up on time.
There you go, right on time. Dr. Gina, good to see you. You guys are there in the Palm Beaches, and I'm sure it's quite warm. It's been warm here, which means that we're probably going to have another big snowstorm coming up. But one of the interesting things coming out of Florida is this Byron Donalds running for governor. It's an interesting story, particularly with Ron DeSantis coming out and throwing a couple of monkey wrenches in Byron Donalds' plan, or at least announcing what he would like to see happen. Yeah. I'm watching this from afar since I can't vote, Dr. Gina.
Well, I'm watching it up close, and it's exciting, Terrance, I'll tell you. Byron Donalds is beloved. He's accessible. He's down to earth. He's transparent. He's authentic. He's all of those things. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I tested him hard because I didn't know him well when I first moved here. I've tried and tried and tried to get to know Ron DeSantis, and he is just a very, very imperial kind of a governor, just to put it bluntly. And a lot of things that I think a lot of Floridians thought would be fixed, for example, are skyrocketing insurance rates are one thing that's really a huge problem, haven't actually been fixed. And so now we come to a point where Donald Trump says he likes the idea of Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds obviously willing to take on this race. He's got the support not just of Donald Trump, but of a lot of local and state grassroots sort of activists, MAGA, frankly. And then, so now it's been reported, actually, that Ron DeSantis would like his wife, Casey, to run instead. Right. Now, this is very interesting because I'm not sure what Governor DeSantis is basing this on. Typically we don't appoint our wives to run for things, but it'll be interesting. I mean, listen, I am all about a healthy primary, but what I don't want to see is Florida conservatives splinter themselves again. And honestly, it's a waste to see Ron DeSantis kind of go down like this. I feel like he could have been better than this.
Well, I don't have a dog in the fight, Dr. Gina, but I'm definitely going to be listening for the barks out of all of this. Anyway, in other headlines this morning, President Trump holding the first cabinet meeting of his second administration today. Elon Musk is going to be there. In fact, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirming Musk's attendance on Tuesday during her press briefing there at the White House.
Elon, considering he is working alongside the president and our cabinet secretaries, this entire administration will be in attendance tomorrow just to talk about DOGE's efforts and how all of the cabinet secretaries are identifying waste, fraud, and abuse at their respective agencies.
Musk's attendance at today's cabinet meeting comes amid confusion about his directive for federal employees to send emails explaining what they did last week or face losing their jobs. Some secretaries who he'll be meeting with today told their employees to ignore that email. In the meantime, Musk also dealing with the loss of 21 employees who resigned from DOGE on Tuesday in protest, saying that they refused to use their skills as part of the government downsizing effort. While the president is addressing one aspect of immigration, the U.S. House is moving forward with funding for a broader solution to the border crisis. Tuesday, the Republican-led chamber advanced its budget plan, with Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie being the only Republican to vote no.
This is the first important step in opening up the reconciliation process. We have a lot of hard work ahead of us, but we are going to deliver the America First agenda. We're going to deliver all of it, not just parts of it, and this is the first step in that process.
The spending plan includes money for President Trump's border security and mass deportation plan. It also addresses President Trump's $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. However, it's only a first step and likely will change during the reconciliation process, during which the House and Senate will try to merge their versions of a budget. The House version of the bill, by the way, seeks $2 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years. The current budget expires March 14th. And while the House barely passed that budget bill, President Trump is endorsing the proposal over the Senate's version. The commander-in-chief is backing the House measure because it tackles more of his top-line agenda items. Plus, the Senate wants to split funding for the president's America First agenda into two bills. So, what's the mood on the Hill this morning? And is there already talk of primarying Congressman Thomas Massie after he broke ranks with fellow Republicans? Let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn to talk more about that and so much more. All right, Brian, you know I've got a push button, so I'm curious. Thomas Massie, he votes no. Is there already talk there about primarying him and getting him out? Let's just be honest. It's egregious to vote no.
Yeah, but he was a hard no from the very beginning. He was very vocal about that. I think the only thing Thomas Massie would vote for would be to basically deconstruct the entire U.S. government. He is not. He may be primaried. Someone might try to, but Thomas Massie is very well respected in his district. He's got strong support there. He stands, he's very fiscal responsible. This is a guy who walks around with a debt clock attached to his suit at all times. Anytime you see Thomas Massie, he's got the debt clock ticking away. So, yes, he might have been a no on this, but he's very popular in Kentucky. Yeah, absolutely. He has a debt clock. If you go to his website, I think you can buy one. It is a digital timer. It clips right to his suit pocket. It has a continual update on what our deficit is. It's fascinating. So it doesn't surprise me that he voted no on this at all. Matter of fact, I spoke to him a couple nights ago. He said, I am a hard no. But I'm sure it'll make some Republicans mad in Kentucky, but they can try to primary him, but I don't think it's going to be successful.
Yeah, if you're voting,
okay, sorry, Dr. Gina. I'm sorry, the smart aleck in me says that debt clock also doubles for the countdown for Mitch McConnell to get out of office.
Yeah, it does. That's on the other side. That's on the other lapel.
That's on the other side. Sorry, Dr. Gina. You know I'm a smart aleck. Yeah. Go ahead. I apologize.
Right. All right, Brian, the House Subcommittee on DOGE is holding a hearing today on USAID and laying out the money that it sent overseas to woke causes. What can we expect to hear out of that meeting today?
Well, like the first one, Democrats like to kind of set the stage as far as their defiance to not only Elon Musk, but this DOGE committee. They think it's a huge waste of time, which I think they failed to recognize that all of the money that we're sending to these organizations overseas is a complete waste of time and complete waste of money. I think you're going to see fireworks today. I expect Democrats to just put their heels in the ground and really fight any type of exposure. They're going to say there's no proof that Elon Musk and his DOGE team, big balls, and everybody else is going to be doing this rogue, and they've got no authority. This is what's going to happen. They're going to say that we're going to, cut Medicaid, Medicare for millions of Americans, which that's not happening. So I expect fireworks 11 o'clock. Now, they did change rooms on this. Originally, this was be done in one of the committee rooms in the Rayburn building. This has been moved actually in the Capitol on one of those conference rooms. So I expect big things coming out today. Look for your Jasmine Crockett social media, Twitter clips, because that's what they're looking for on this. They're looking to create content, but we're looking to create change in the waste, fraud, and abuse of our government. Yeah.
So, Brian, I've got to ask you then about Elon Musk going to today's cabinet hearing. He's going to obviously be discussing DOGE and what he's doing, and I would imagine challenging some of the secretaries to make sure that there's no fraud, waste, and abuse. Can you flesh that out for us a little bit?
Yeah, he is going to be sitting in. I think it's going to be unique point here. First time the cabinet members have all been together under the Trump administration, all in the same room. I would imagine he's going to look at every single department. I'm sure he'll have some questions of what they think they could, reduce, whether it's staff, funding, whatever. It should be interesting, and we'll see what the mannerisms are towards Elon Musk from these cabinet members, how well they receive his questions. We'll all be watching. Once again, that starts at 11 a.m. here local time as well.
It's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, Brian, before we let you go, President Trump greeted the first White House tour of his second term. I want to take a look.
Okay, real quickly, Carolyn Levitt, your press secretary.
But I want to thank you very much for coming. The tour is so great. We did such a good job. First Lady worked very hard in making it perfect, and I think you're going to really love it. And I heard you were here, and I said, let's stop by and say hello. Very smart-looking people, I must say. Very smart. Maybe someday you'll be here as the president, right? Somebody in this group has a chance. Have a good time. Have a great tour, and you're going to give them a special tour, okay? You're going to get a special tour. Have fun, everybody.
Yup, USA, awesome. Brian.
That is amazing that chant broke out there. And, of course, yesterday was the official first day for White House tours. We even saw a sign out in front of the press briefing room that said, hey, tours stop right here. While we're on that, real quickly, yesterday, earthquake was sent through the briefing room as Carolyn Levitt dropped the news that the WHCA no longer had authority or the permission to put people in those seats and designated seats that have been reserved for whoever they felt needed to be in that room. That's been opened up to now the Trump press team. So we'll see if there's any changes in the seating charts as we move forward, and also seats on Air Force One. Big day here. By the way, there is a sign in the back of the press room. It says this: we stand with the AP. Signifying that they are not in support of what the Trump team has done, and they're taking their stance. So if they truly stand with the AP, there's a 20-foot wrought iron fence on the other side
yes.
Of the lawn here that they can all go stand over there, because that's where they're standing
Brian,
today.
Real quick, I don't want to interrupt, but we're in a hard wrap. Just yes or no, does this mean that those people will literally not be in there? Because I was just there last week, and all the independent media has to stand on the sides and around the edges, and then those guys come in and are seated like kings, right? Because everyone else has been standing there for a long time, and then the legacy press walks in, and the seas part, and they sit down in their seats. Is that going to change? Yes, just yes or no, because we have no time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. Back to you.
You're the best. All right, up next, the FBI now. Thank you, Brian. FBI now facing subpoenas for records from the Biden days. What document does the House Judiciary Committee want? We tell you next. American Sunrise returns right after this.
Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp. This morning, we're flushing out the FBI. Well, at least the FBI under Christopher Wray and Ice Cream Joe. The House Judiciary Committee issued a subpoena for the FBI to turn over documents related to alleged misconduct during the Biden administration. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, the guy without the jacket, asked for records relating to claims of the Biden administration putting law enforcement into local school board meetings. We know all about that. And also the memo that called traditional Catholics violent extremists. And Jordan is also asking for records related to January 6th. So there's a lot of requests out to Kash Patel at the FBI, the new FBI director. Praise God, he is there. Gina, Terrance, what do you make? We'll start with Gina. I mean, there's a lot of requests. And also, we got the JFK files, got the Epstein. I mean, here, he's got a lot of work. I'm assuming Kash is going to release a lot of this, but, you know, let's wait and see.
The appetite, the patience of the American public is just not there on these things. They want it now. Like they're saying, well, if the documents exist, then why haven't we seen them yet? So I hope that they will expedite this process, especially some of the classified documents that we've all been waiting for. I don't even think I have to name them, but you know what they are. I think that the American public wants to see them. They want to see them now. They don't want them redacted, right? They just
80% redacted. Yeah, exactly.
They just want them. You know, when some of these classified documents are decades old, it's just really hard to understand why there would need to be redactions at this point. We've seen whatever was going to transpire that could have been classified or in any way compromise our national security. So let's just roll, people. Let's just roll. This is going to be fun, Terrance.
You know, to play off of your word, let's just roll. That's one of the things Kash Patel appears to be doing. A story that came out just yesterday is that he's also going to be deploying agents from Washington, D.C. out into the country. So he's going to basically be sending them into communities around the country and decentralizing, I guess, what's happening there in Washington, D.C., which I think is huge. There's been a lot of talk about that from various federal agents, getting the workers in D.C., those bureaucrats in D.C. out so that they can really impact the rest of the country. And it sounds like Kash Patel is one of the first secretaries, or I guess technically he's not a secretary, but head of an agency who is doing that. More than 1,000 agents are going to be deployed. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. This was a campaign promise of Donald Trump. He said that he didn't think that D.C. needed to be centralized in, you know, there's a culture there, David, and we teach you about this all the time. Like, are you getting swampy, David? Because I don't know, you're there, what? You know, around those people. But it's only a half joke. You know, groupthink is a real thing. And you can look at psychological studies going back forever. And this is a real thing. And there's a reason why when people get to D.C., a lot of times, and I'm talking about bureaucrats, they get to be part of that bureaucratic mind. They might have been, I watched this happen in the Missouri State Capitol. A little bit of power can be intoxicating to a weak mind. And we've seen it over again. It happens with mall cops. It happens with managers in corporations, right? A little bit of power can be intoxicating to a weak person, to an immature person. And that is why someplace like D.C., where there's a lot of power absolutely corrupts, David.
Well, look, this new administration's coming in, guys, and they're going to sweep out folks. And I guess if I'm here in the deep state, I'll be doing the show from Wichita, Kansas. I guess I'm out. So they're getting all of us, even me. I'm a mole, by the way. Have I told you I'm a mole? I'm a mole.
No, but you know, seriously, David, with only just a few seconds remaining, I'm really curious what you think the impact of decentralizing Washington, D.C. will be.
Well, it's huge. I mean, it just goes back to the founding of our country and something we talk about all the time. I mean, you can extrapolate that over this, the idea of being community-based. It's the same thing. It goes to we the people. And if you're closer to the people, you're closer to the truth, and you're closer to, you know, in essence, a better system. Not
right,
a
because
system,
when you go home from work at night, right, and you go to the grocery store, you're not with a bunch of other bureaucrats who are all in groupthink, right? You're with real people. And I think that could have major impact.
100%. I've got to go visit my uppity friends now. I got to run. All right. Coming up on American Sunrise, President Trump has entered his second month back in office after an action-packed first month. So what can we expect next? We're going to take a look at that. Hi, you're pointing at me? Hi, President Trump. But first, a top Hamas leader just made a shocking admission about the October 7th terror attack on Israel. We're going to have that update next on American Sunrise.
this is something you don't see very often. Duck Creek Village, Utah. Never heard of the place. I'll have to Google it, but it looks like a pretty place there. We're getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange on the complete opposite side of the country in New York. We'll take you to Wall Street here in just a moment. I can tell you pre-market trading looking pretty good right now. The Dow is up, as is the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. All of those indices looking positive, at least in early market trading. Gold is down. Silver and crude oil are up. Again, we'll take you to New York for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange here in about 5 minutes. But first, let's get you over to David. David, good morning.
Thank you. And good morning. And can I just quickly say, Terrance, as a quick aside, if I'm going to Duck Creek Village and there's not a duck, that is going to be a problem. I mean,
yeah,
you better give me at least 10 ducks in that. Yeah, 100%. Anyhow, sorry, I digress. Good to see you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Both Russia and Ukraine are trying to get an economic cooperation deal with the United States. A deal with Ukraine has been finalized regarding the rare earth minerals. U.S. officials say that the deal is partially about repayment for the billions in aid that we have already sent over, and one that will be discussed when Zelensky makes his potential trip to the United States this week. And now we have this news. Russia says it's open to a deal for rare earth minerals as well with the United States. Russian President Vladimir Putin highlighted the amount of rare earth minerals the country has and added he would be open to getting partners, including the United States. Oh, goodness gracious. Let it flow. So what does this mean for the war between Russia and Ukraine? Well, let's talk about that and bring in former CIA Senior Operations Officer Rick De La Torre. Rick, good to see you again on the show. So what do you think about these deals? One looks like it's all set. The other one could be with Russia. I mean, could either of these deals end the war? How important are they in the whole scheme of things? I mean, it's kind of a big deal for America, for sure.
Sure. Well, let's start with the what I call the real deal, which is the one with Ukraine. That's a smart economic and strategic win for the administration. The new mineral rights deal in Ukraine, what that will do, that will ensure the U.S. benefits economically from just the massive contributions we've done over the Biden years. Instead of this endless blank checks that we've been giving to Ukraine, we're now looking at getting some tangible assets in return. This kind of deal, I think, strengthens Ukraine, and it should reduce the burden on U.S. taxpayers who have been flipping the bill. It provides the economic stability, and it attracts the U.S. investment into Ukraine, and it should provide stronger ties. The elements and lithium, the rare earth stuff, the titanium, those are all the materials we need now to increase and secure our both tech industry and our military industry.
Yeah, and Russia, that'll be interesting to see. I don't know about that. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, but go ahead.
I agree with you. I think I think that's just like a red herring that Putin has thrown out there. When push comes to shove, he's still an adversary of the United States. I don't see him contributing in any significant way to advancing U.S. military or U.S. technology or partnering in that way. So it's just a way of muddling up the discussions now.
I got less than a minute left, but I want to get to this. There was a top leader of Hamas who's speaking out about October 7th, and that's the terror attack, of course, against Israel. It's the head of Hamas's foreign relations office in Qatar. They told the New York Times if they knew the consequences of the attack, they would not have supported it. Go ahead, you're laughing. It appears to be a split inside Hamas. Really? A split about killing the Jews? Yeah. Shocking. Yeah, right.
Well, let's put aside, first of all, let's just put aside that this is nothing more than a New York puff piece. New York Times puff piece, and a way of trying to, to reinvent or remarket Hamas as the softer, gentler Hamas, right? That there's somehow reasonable terrorists out there that and I don't understand what that means, right? Like instead of calling for the death of Israelis and Jews, they're only calling for hurting Israelis and Jews. How does it become a softer argument? But setting all that aside. Right. Yeah. Monday morning.
Got to go quickly. Go ahead.
Saying, what we did on October 7th might not have been a good idea. That's just silly. That's just absurd. These guys, they're terrorists. And that's what that's what they are.
Got to run up against a tough break. Yeah, tough break and a tight break. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Glad to have you here. Time for the opening bell, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, the applause is underway at the New York Stock Exchange, which means the bell is going to ring here in short order, and we'll get an idea of how the markets are shaping up as they open this morning. Pre-market trading looking good. All three indices were in the green just moments ago, and so we're hoping that it will stay that way. You can see that. Is that Eric Adams up there? I can't see very well, but you can see that NYC Department of Veterans Services is at the podium. That's who is there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the bell is ringing, which means the markets are now officially open, and just like that, the Dow, S&P 500, NASDAQ, all remaining on the positive end of things. The only blemish on our screen is gold, which is in the red at the moment. We, of course, will be monitoring the markets throughout the day, and we'll keep you updated if there's anything significant to report. In the meantime, have you seen the news from economists forecasting a depression, not a recession? Depression by the year 2030, that is. We're in a perfect storm as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point with the largest generation hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base, and pair that with our growing national debt and rising cost of living, we've got a big problem brewing. So, what are you doing now to protect your family and your future? Well, gold is a safe haven in hard economic times, and the Birch Gold Group makes it really easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. The Birch Gold Group will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Protect your future today by texting the word America to the number 989898 and getting your free information kit on gold. You can also get a copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword written by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation here, only information. The Birch Gold Group has earned the trust of countless of Americans looking to safeguard their savings, and you can count on them as well. Simply by texting the word America to the number 989890 today, you can get all the information you need. Still to come here on American Sunrise, newly sworn in HHS Secretary RFK Jr. hitting the ground running and trying to end the over-medication of our children. So how are those efforts going? Stick around to find out. First, though, the Prime Minister of Denmark says that she's open to U.S. cooperation on Greenland. So what would that look like? We'll assess next here on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Thank you for joining us this morning. We invite you to join in our conversation on Getter and Rumble. We get in the chat. We have a good time. It is now time to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, President Trump now entering his second month in office after a super fast-paced month the first time around. The first month saw Doge trying to rein in the federal government, pardons, and expanded ICE operations, just to name a few things. So what to expect in the second month? Well, the Washington Examiner says it like this: Trump's wild first month was a success. Now comes the hard part. That hard part involves getting that budget reconciliation bill to become a reality, fighting against all the lawsuits, all the ones against Doge, striking a peace deal between the U.S. and Russia that will benefit us here in America. So what can we expect? You guys, it's gonna be a popcorn popping, edge of the seat sitting, news drinking from a fire hose having, right? It's gonna be interesting, David.
We can expect no sleep. Let's start with that. That's like a baseline for all of us. But to me, what's interesting here is we always talk about Trump, and like I said, I like to call it story time in America, all of the executive orders he signs like every day, which is really kind of fun and interesting and cool. But beyond all of that and all of the wildness that's coming out of the White House and the flurry of activity, why don't we add on Kash Patel at the FBI? Pam Bondi at the DOJ, and so many of the RFK, I can go on, at HHS. They're going to all have their separate rollouts of a flurry of activity. So it's like multiple flurries of activities. That's a lot of plurals, Terrance.
No, I'm with you. Trump is going to Trump. He is going to do him. He is going to always make headlines and continue to roll out a flurry of executive orders and that kind of thing. And to your point, David, I think the various secretaries are also going to be making headlines because they're being called on to make radical changes. But I have to admit, what I'm going to be watching most closely is what the House and Senate do. What happens on Capitol Hill? Are they going to really be able to sustain some of what President Trump is pushing? Are they going to be able to truly follow through on this mandate that President Trump has gotten and making sure that it becomes reality? And so that's what I'm going to be watching. And I hope that these lawmakers are going to be held to account if for some reason they don't.
Can I just say one quick thing on that? The answer is yes. They will pass this budget reconciliation bill because if they don't, they'll all be fired. And the bottom line is that they want to stay in power. So even those moderate Republicans that are going to give the White House headaches, and even some of the fiscal hawks that are going to be potentially problematic at times, eventually they're all going to come around, because if not, they'll be out of a job because Trump's got a mandate and they can't play around with that.
All right, let's go over to the war between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump and his team have been, as you know, guys, negotiating with Russia and Ukraine on this issue. Trump says the war could end soon, but if things are not handled correctly, he had this assessment. Take a look.
I think the war could end soon.
Well, how soon?
Within weeks. Yeah, I think so. Right? Don't you think so? I'd like to have you. I think we could end it within weeks if we're smart. If we're not smart, it'll keep going, and we'll keep losing young, beautiful people that shouldn't be dying. And we don't want that. And remember what I said. This could escalate into a third world war. And we don't want that either.
Definitely don't want that. For more, let's bring in the former ambassador to Denmark and the vice chair of America First Policy Institute at the AFPI Center for Energy and Environment, Carla Sands. Ambassador, I just want to say Copenhagen, because when I was over there and I learned how to say Copenhagen the way the Danish say it, I went there on my honeymoon, Ambassador. Just how big is the threat of Russia to the West at this point with Donald Trump in the Oval Office? How much anxiety do we need to have, Ambassador?
Well, my biggest worry is actually the Chinese Communist Party, not Russia. Russia would never have invaded Ukraine if President Trump had been in the White House. We needed strong American leadership. And Russia saw, Joe Biden from the podium say, if there's a minor incursion, we're not going to do anything. Putin saw Joe Biden say, we're not going to sanction that Russian gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, that my team and I blocked the entire time. We were working on behalf of the Trump administration. And then And then we saw the disastrous and deadly Afghanistan withdrawal. And I think that's why Putin went in at a moment of devastating weakness. So President Trump is going to get things right. We needed strong American leadership. Now we have it, and we can see that the world is paying attention. They were just desperate for leadership and good leadership. And so he's ending the foreign wars, including this Ukraine war. I believe he will get it to a good place, this war that should never have happened. And he wants to end the killing. And most people in the world support that.
Ambassador, I'd like to tap into your expertise on Denmark, having been the ambassador there. President Trump, of course, working on getting deals done with Greenland. Denmark's prime minister saying that she hopes the sovereignty of her country is going to be respected and that Greenland is a territory of Denmark, but going on to add that she's open to any cooperation on the Arctic front, especially when it comes to Russia. So what do you make of all of this? How do you see all of this ultimately playing out?
Well, Denmark's been an ally of the United States for about 200 years, and they're certainly now contributing more to their defense not because of Ukraine so much as because of this now discussion about Greenland, and the fact that President Trump looks at our Western Hemisphere and says, we're not letting the Chinese Communist Party control the Panama Canal. That's for our national defense. We're not letting China or Russia control Greenland. And let's not forget, Denmark's talking about their territorial sovereignty, but the Greenlanders say they're going independent. So if they're going independent, they're not going to be part of Denmark. Maybe they'll have some kind of relationship because of their history, but the history is not that good. And Denmark is desperate for investment. They want to grow their economy. They want to have good paying jobs, and they want to be secure. Denmark can't afford to secure Greenland, and they've never bothered to develop it. And so I think that President Trump will get some kind of a deal, but I never get in front of the president.
For sure. Probably a good idea. That's no doubt. Ambassador Sands, let me continue to ask you actually a little bit about Greenland and China specifically. I mean, China's been there for a while now. I mean, what they are doing, can you kind of explain to our audience what their footprint is in Greenland? Because, I mean, it's all about the minerals and a lot of other things economically. And not to mention national security interests, too.
Yes, it is about our national security. So Greenland, the world's largest island, is just off our northeast coast. So it's part of North America. It's not part of Europe. Greenland is essential for our national security. We don't want China to have control. And when I got to Greenland as the U.S. ambassador, I saw that the U.S. had left the region, not just Greenland, but the oceans around it. We had really left the Arctic. And the Chinese Communist Party looks at the globe from the North and South poles. So they look at the Arctic and Antarctic. And there's a book written by Anne-Marie Brady called China as a Polar Great Power. And it's about their aspirations to control in the government and to have the resources at both the North and South poles. They, when I got to Greenland, had an interest in a majority of the mines. There was no U.S. investment when I got there in 2017 and when I left in 2021. We were able to put a consulate in Greenland, but the fact is it was the Chinese Communist Party that flew the Greenlandic premier and his government to Beijing and rolled out the red carpet and tried to pull them into their Belt and Road Initiative.
Wow.
Ambassador, I know that you used to work in healthcare as a chiropractic physician. Newly sworn in HHS Secretary RFK Jr. has vowed to shake up the health industry and is now launching an effort to fight the over-medication of our children. This is something that chiropractic physicians have long stood in support of. How long will it take, though, before lives are actually saved? Because usually these sorts of overhauls of habits, like Rockefeller medicine in general, maybe changing from a chemical-based perspective to a plant-based perspective like we used to have, these kinds of things, how long will it take and what are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I'm so excited that RFK Jr. is heading HHS. And I thank you for mentioning I'm a retired third-generation doctor of chiropractic. And we do look at the whole person. So we look at the nutrition. What's the person eating? We look at lifestyle. Are they getting outside? Are they moving around? If they're children, are they playing outside in the sunshine? And what we can see is a really different childhood today from when we were kids. When we were kids, we were outside playing and being active. And we were eating not a lot of pre-prepared foods. You know, we had protein and we had vegetables. Now, when I was a kid, some of them were canned vegetables. Now we have so many more fresh vegetables. So it should be easier, but it's not, because I think the kind of big food has made it, you know, very convenient to have all these sort of prepared foods that aren't so healthy for us. So as RFK Jr. gets in there, and he begins to look at the over-medication of our children and changing the recommendations. The recommendations are really shocking, how many medications children are encouraged to have, that the doctors aren't looking at the whole person for their health, not just for disease management, but for healthy people. When I was working in Denmark as the ambassador, the government and the people were encouraged to be outside, to be active, to bike ride, not take the subway if they could, to eat a healthy diet. And they really did. Like even 7-Eleven had healthy, fresh foods. They weren't these Frankenfoods that you'll find if you go in many fast food stores or gas stops. So I'm really excited that we're going to end up in 4 years, and hopefully we have more after that with another Republican president. We can continue this change so that our country, this disaster of our health system and the health of our children, that it improves.
Ambassador, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ambassador. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Great to see you.
All right, you guys, from saving our kids' lives to saving you money, the IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th coming right up, more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do wait, the worse it could get. So ignoring your tax troubles is the absolute worst thing you could do. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. Getting ahead of this right now is smart, but never contact the IRS on your own. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys have negotiators that have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. That is a lot. Talk with one of the strategists today. It is free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder. And protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. You take control. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th, just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. All right, coming up, Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw caught making some, let's just say, cringy remarks on a hot mic. We have the clip next, right here on American Sunrise.
Let's spill some tea.
Let's Spill Some Tea is sponsored by the Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTCO.com is the website. Use the promo code RAV, that's R-A-V, for 10% off. Artillery Tea is all natural, it's whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free and each can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Again, the website is artillerytco.com. Use the promo code RAV, R-A-V, for 10% off. All right, let's get right into what's in the cup today. And there appears to be some bad blood between Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw and Tucker Carlson. Crenshaw had some pretty bleeping harsh words for Carlson.
Have you ever met Tucker?
Well, okay. The congressman did try to deny that he actually said what you just heard there. He posted this on Twitter responding to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, asking if he actually meant this as an assassination attempt, but he, of course, denied that that was the case. All right, let's bring in David, Dr. Gina, to talk a bit more about this. So, David, we'll start with you. What do you make of it?
Well, I have a different angle entirely on all of this. This is GB News. It's out of England. And this is their standard. This is their quote on their website. At GB News, excellence is our standard. That's their quote. And it says they're defined by great British culture of honor and that they treat everyone, including guests, with the same dignity and respect we would want for ourselves. That was not part of the interview. That was when he was taking off the mic. Look, I'm not defending Dan Crenshaw. Okay, so that has nothing to do with the actual meat of what was said. I'm talking about from a media perspective and a due diligence and an ethics perspective. Sorry, no. Look, I can make a lot of money if I wrote a book called Hot Mic Moments. Okay, I can make tons of money. I don't, and I also don't. How did that clip get on the air or get on Twitter? So someone put it together. Someone released it. I don't know if it was GB News or not. I have no idea. So I'm going in a much different angle on all of this from an ethical standpoint.
But that's fair. I appreciate
once again,
that, Dr. Gina.
I just want to be very clear because I'm not sure what Dr. G is going to say, but I'm not trying to blow off what Crenshaw said about Tucker Carlson. We can have that discussion. That's fine. No problem. I mean, what he said was horrible. But I'm talking to what caught my eye was the media portion.
So David, Brody, because I know your heart, and I don't want anyone to come back at you and say, so you're okay with the death threat of Tucker Carlson? Because of course that's not what you're saying at all. But my question to you, because I know this is in your head, even though I don't think you've articulated it yet. What would have been the appropriate response? Because having something like that on the mic, you are kind of responsible for it. Releasing it to the public, maybe not. But then again, the U.S. FBI, CIA, anyone else who might have addressed this, were so corrupt at that point that maybe they might have felt like the only thing they could do would be to release it to the public at large and let the chips fall. Well, what would you have had them do?
I mean, it's a great question. Here a couple things. Number one, if they felt so inclined to go to authorities about it privately, do it. I mean, that's fine. Maybe that's the answer. But to release the clip like that, I mean, and maybe people say, well, it's for the public good or whatever, or Tucker Carlson needs to see this. I mean, I think it's just not ethical. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, careers could end over this, and people's lives are affected over this. And once again, I'm not defending Dan Crenshaw. I'm just upset the fact that they're just willy-nilly with off-the-record, after-the-interview stuff. Right. I have tons of stuff that I could just destroy people with, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm not
and this is actually a really interesting point, David, because maybe they did release it, let's just say to Tucker Carlson, and maybe Tucker Carlson is the person who said, you know what, I don't trust the FBI, I don't trust anyone else who's supposed to investigate this, I'm just going to release it to the public because I don't know what else to do. Unfortunately, the corruption of our institutions made it so that they may not have had an option, David. Nevertheless, I think Crenshaw should be held accountable for what he said, because that sounded to me like a death threat.
Wow,
Yeah,
we had an interview about Denmark, and now I'm being Switzerland because I agree with both of you. I think you guys both make great points here. I'm Switzerland on this one. Still to come here on American Sunrise, everyone needs a grandmother, but how real grandmothers found new ways to spread love, not just to their families, but to their entire communities, that's coming up. It's a story that will put a smile on your face, and it's ahead here on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is time now for the boy. We got into it, David, because I'll tell you what, that chat is going bonkers over our conversation about Crenshaw and Tucker. All right, you guys. But now it's time for the sunny side up. And in the pan today, grandmothers who just want to help their community, and they do this with the Grandma Stand. Grandma Stand is a pop-up project in New York City. It was launched by Mike Matthews when his grandmother couldn't travel anymore. Matthews said his grandmother just wanted to help people, and she wanted elderly people to be seen. It stopped for a time in 2018 after Matthews' grandmother passed away, but now it's back. It is a rotating grandmother that is voted on social media. Listen, take a look at this.
I bought a lemonade stand, and I put a laptop and headphones in a chair and let anyone talk to my grandma.
Were you shy as a young man?
She wanted to be seen. She wants, in her own words, old people to be seen.
Everybody needs a grandma. I'm willing to share mine.
Be empathetic, because that goes a long way.
Yes.
I strive to be the type of person that see good in everyone. We need to show more love.
You guys, I could not love this more. You know that I kind of grew up in nursing homes. My mom was a single mother who worked in nursing homes, so I spent a ton of time with grandmas, right? And a lot of these grandmas who maybe didn't know their grandchildren for whatever reason. There's so much wisdom there, you guys. I love this. I can't say enough good, T.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a great opportunity for young people in particular to sit and talk with someone that's got the wisdom of a senior citizen. I think this is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. I'd love my mom to sit for this.
Ooh.
We salute the elderly. We love it, except for Joe Biden.
Terrance,
I'm going to get in trouble.
That.
I just called my mom old.
Terrance, let's do that. I want to do that. I want to get your mom somewhere where we can ask her questions. Anyway, great show today. Thank you all for joining us. So much more for you every morning. Don't forget the early show at 7 a.m. with Jake Novak, and then we come on at 8 a.m. We'll see you then. War Room up next. Hug your children, love your God. You go boldly now and live the truth.